Hey everyone, Eric Grondin here. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the Conservative Party leadership race. Now, this came all about after Erin O'Toole was ousted as party leader in early February by his own caucus. He had lost the election in 2021 against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and the Conservatives wanted to have a change at the top. Now, the Conservatives are having their third leadership race in just 5 years. They last held one in 2020 and had another one in 2017. So it has been a lot of leadership races for this party over the last few years. So we do know the rules of the race. On September 10th, the Conservative Party will announce who will be the next leader. Whoever does want to run does have to put their name forward by April 19th. And will have until June 3rd to sign up new members. This is going to be really key because for some of the leadership contestants that will be in this race, they need to sign up new members. The membership that currently exists within the party might not be very friendly to them, so they need to make sure that they can bring in new people who will support them. So they have until June 3rd to do that, which isn't a huge amount of time, but serious contenders, serious campaigns should be able to sign up enough members to, at the very least, make themselves competitive. Now, to get into the race, candidates will have to raise a lot of money. They'll have to have a $200,000 entry fee to get into the race and another $100,000 deposit. Now, this is used to ensure good behavior by the candidates, and as long as everything goes to plan, after the race is over, that $100,000 will be returned to the campaign. Now, $300,000 might sound like a lot of money, and of course it is, but it isn't something that a serious leadership candidate can't raise. We saw in 2017 when the fee was a little bit smaller, but really still quite big, there's 14 candidates that were on that ballot at the very end of it. And in 2020, there were 4 candidates who were also on that ballot who had to raise $300,000. There was a 5th candidate, Jim Karahalios, who did also raise $300,000, but was deemed ineligible by the Conservative Party for some of the things that he had done during that campaign. Now remember that in Canada, the limit is only $1,600 that you can donate to a candidate. So it's not about big money getting into this. It is about getting lots of different people to raise money and to donate money to these candidates. And a lot of money can be raised. The candidates in 2020 raised millions of dollars during that race. Peter MacKay, Erin O'Toole, they were able to raise $3-4 million. So it is certainly a kind of fundraising that is possible, especially for a serious candidate, but also for some of those candidates who have different circles that they might go in. Raising $300,000 is something they can do. Of course, they need to raise a little bit more than that because to run a real campaign, it takes money, especially if we're looking at a race that will be about 6 months long. Now, this race will be decided by a ranked ballot. How a ranked ballot works is that voters get to rank their choices from their first to their second, their third, their fourth, as many as they are on the ballot. That's how many people can be ranked. You don't have to rank everybody. You can only choose your first or maybe your first and second. And some voters do that. But this does allow for people to only have to vote once. You don't have to have multiple rounds of voting. There's just multiple rounds of counting. Now, how the count works is that in each round, if there isn't someone who has 50% support, the candidate who had the least amount of support is dropped. And whoever that candidate's voters put as their second choice, their votes are redistributed to those other candidates. And this process continues until there is a candidate that has at least 50% of the vote. We saw in 2017 there's 14 candidates on that ballot, and it took all 13 rounds to get to a winner. Andrew Scheer defeated Maxime Bernier by a very thin margin of 51% to 49%. And we saw as well in 2020 that with 4 candidates, it did take 3 rounds for Erin O'Toole to defeat Peter MacKay by a margin of 57% to 43%. Now, the ranked leadership ballot is extremely important for these kinds of races because it means you need to have down ballot support. Unless you're going to win 50% on the first round, which is very rare, you need to have support from other candidates in order to win. So that means that you do have to find paths. If you, in this race, for example, are running as a hardline conservatives, you need to have other hardline conservatives or social conservatives or other people who might be able to rank you second or third and so propel you to victory. We saw Andrew Scheer did pretty well in 2017 because he got the support of social conservatives who in that race were supporting Pierre Lemieux and Brad Trost. In 2020, we saw the same kind of thing happen for Erin O'Toole. He got support from Leslyn Lewis's supporters who were social conservatives. Peter MacKay, who was more of a moderate candidate, was unable to develop support on those other ballots because he didn't really have anybody to grow from. So those dynamics are really important. And it really is something to watch during this race, how the different candidates line up and whose supporters might end up backing other candidates as their second, third choice, because those are the people who will actually decide in some ways who will become the next leader of the party. There's another thing to take into account, there's a lot of things to take into account, is how the ballots will be counted. It's not a one member, one vote kind of race. It is that every riding in the country is given equal weight. There are 338 ridings in Canada, and the idea is that each of them is worth 100 points. So it doesn't matter if there are 500 members voting in a riding or 5,000. The riding will be worth 100 points. In cases where there are fewer than 100 members in a riding, then the amount of points the riding will be worth as many voters as there are. If there are only 79 voting members in a particular riding, then that riding will be worth 79 points. But most ridings will be worth 100 points. And what it means is that you have to have support from across the country. You can't just run up the numbers in Alberta or in downtown Toronto. You need to have support everywhere. In that way, it actually does reflect a little bit how we have elections in Canada. Because we have a first past the post system, you do need to have support from across the country. So it does mean that candidates do have to travel around, they do have to speak to a lot of different members, they have to sign up different members in different parts of the country. And so it gives a different kind of race than just trying to sign up as many members as you can in just little pockets. But this dynamic is really important for these kinds of races. And you usually see the kind of political divisions that you would expect, that the ridings in Western Canada tend to be more conservative, tend to vote for candidates who are more conservative, people like Andrew Scheer or Erin O'Toole in the last two leadership races. And then in places like Quebec, Atlantic Canada, and in the urban centers, Toronto, Vancouver, you tend to have more support from moderate candidates, people like Peter MacKay in the last race. So these kinds of dynamics will be another factor to take into account as this race unfolds. Now you have to remember that this is a race to win the Conservative Party. And that means appealing to Conservative Party members who are more conservative than the general population. There are a few different wings of supporters in the Conservative Party today. One of them is more further to the right, more populist, perhaps more based out in Western Canada and rural Canada. This is a group of voters who want to see conservative fiscal policies, but also in lots of cases, social conservative policies. These are people who would have in the past supported the Reform Party or the Canadian Alliance, one of the parties that merged with the Progressive Conservatives to form the modern Conservative Party. Another wing is a more moderate group of people within the Conservative Party. These are the people who would have been the old PCs, red Tories. They are people that, while they might still have conservative fiscal policies, want to see, low taxes, things like that, they have progressive social policies. So, they're not opposed to gay marriage or abortion or anything like that. There's also the wing of the party that is the social conservative wing. Now, this is a group of members that are primarily motivated by social conservative issues. So that means opposition to things like abortion or anti-conversion therapy laws, for example. These members within the party will have some common positions on economics or foreign policy as other conservatives, but their primary motivation are the social conservative issues. And while they aren't a large enough group within the party to elect a leader, they tend to be a large enough group to be the king or queen makers in a leadership race, as they were in 2017, as they were in 2020. So these are the three real large blocks of voters within the Conservative Party membership. And in order to win, you need to appeal to usually at least two of those three. So why should you care about this leadership race? Maybe you're not a conservative. Maybe you've never voted conservative and you never will. You should still care. Why? Only two parties have ever governed this country, and one of them is the Conservative Party. They are currently the official opposition. They are currently tied with the Liberals in most polls. When the next election is held, the Liberals will have been in power for 7, 8, 9 years. That is usually the natural cycle of a government. So whoever becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party could become the next Prime Minister. All right, that'll be it for this. I hope that if you like this video, you will subscribe to this channel. I'm Eric Grenier of therid.ca. Thanks for watching.